The human race has a habit of deriving their life purpose from something that's very external to themselves. It could be a job, or a person, or a cause. But why do we depend on something that's so external to ourselves for our own individual life purpose? Why not look for something that's more abstract, something that you can develop, something that you can harness, something that comes from, maybe within? And it could be from within your brain, or within your own spectrum of how you understand the world. I'm talking of an observation. I am i am a writer of cities, and this talk is going to be about how your observation of the world can transform into a life pursuit, or a way that you can derive purpose for your own life. So my story begins actually in Bangalore, and I am a a 20-year-old student of English literature, strolling the streets. I've always been known to stroll the streets and, always like a flanner. And you observe the city and its structure, look at its edifice, what is controlling, what is not. And I've always been that kind of a person to go off on my own. And while I'm walking in Bangalore, what I realize is, and if you have seen Bangalore's edifice, it's very controlled and very structured. It's not super imposing, but everything is very carefully formulated. Now, if you look at, Cubbon Park for its, Cubbon Park is a, public park, and it may seem open to all, but when you actually look at the elements inside Cubbon Park, you'll see there's a lot of structure, there's a lot of instruction, there's a lot of don't plug the flowers, and there's a lot of boundaries, and there's a lot telling you what not to do. So, this was my observation about the city that was soon going to change my life and the course of my life. So, that's where I begin, right? You begin with an observation. It's always an observation. But we as a human race, we have this habit of really underestimating our opinion about the world. And we are always told what to do and how to do. But once in a while, you have to, take a step back, and you have to say that this is my observation of the world and maybe I can do something about it. So, this whole transformation of the observation into your life pursuit, what is the next step? The next step comes in, a realization of the past. And I can only talk about my story, right? So, here goes. So, I, look back into my past. Sometimes you have to look back into your past to see how far you have come along your journey, and understand what elements are very in sync with the observation you've made. So I go back to the past few years of my life before 20, and I'm doing this internship with this blog called Live History India. And I have to write 4 to 5 articles for them. And I notice this pattern where every article is about a city. It starts with, Pondicherry, and I'm looking at the food politics in Pondicherry, and then um, it goes to Mangalore, and then the interaction of the Jews in Mangalore many years ago, the letters of correspondence between Aden and Mangalore, and transcontinental trade and things like that. And there's a pattern, right? There's a pattern in your past, and it's necessary to look at patterns in things that come so naturally to you, because that's where your life purpose is attached to. That's where your observation comes from. It comes from the source and a history of your actions. I mean, destiny itself is, an effect of the history of actions. And to think of that, and, to chart out my life and see, is this observation something that's not coincidental? That's when you have to look at your past and, think about this observation. Think how it's linked to what you have studied in the past, what you have done in the past, and, sail along. So we have that, right? We have the second step. Now, what's the third? The third, I think, for me was a very fulfilling aspect. I also call it like the expedition, or the research aspect of a pursuit. So what I had to do was, look at Bangalore and look at what has been written about Bangalore. And that process is very humbling. And I call it an expedition because you don't really know where you're going in an expedition. You know the destination, but you don't know what challenges or what trials and tribulations will come along the way. So that kind of humbles you. And reading, narratives on Bangalore, like the two you can see behind me, these two, and it's very important to acknowledge what fuels your opinion about the world, because like I said, it's history, it's your actions in this world are historic. And you have to be humble in the process of figuring out your own life process. Like, that's real transformation, when you realize that it's not just the self and fulfillment of the self, but you are here for a very historic reason. So after you get your research in, and you are developing this comprehensive thought, you're developing your observation, you've come far along. Now you're going to be able to fight for this observation and your claim on what you think about the world. The next step is ideology. And in ideology, right, we always think of it as a very stuck up thought in our brain, and you have to stick to that. But it is more than that, right? It is a lifestyle. you, you have to develop your ideology in a way that it becomes something that you wake up and you live your day through, basically. So what I did was, once I knew I was so invested in cities, and the control and the manipulation, and how the edifice, is structured in a way that controls the citizens, things like that. I tried to take it in my stride, and very recently I went to Chandor, which is in Goa, and I obviously I'd written about Chandor 2 to 3 years ago, and to go back to that place and see Chandrapur, or how it was Goa's ancient capital, and many people don't know that about Goa, and it's very essential to Goa's identity as a as a state, and how everything shifted to Panjim, and the trade routes, and how culturally rich it was at that time when this city was the capital of Goa. So then to go back and to kind of realize that your purpose of life is somehow planned in some way. And I'm not saying it's supernatural or it's something out of our control, because like I said, all actions are historic. You plan your own path of life. And but then to go there to Chandor and to think that I already wrote about it, something about it, obviously, it contributes to your purpose. It mingles, your purpose in life mingles with everything you do and you have done, and that assails you forward. So that's how your ideology is formed. And the next step after ideology is, obviously, once you have reached um, this stage in your life where you have something to fight for, and you have a thought that you think may impact the world, the next step is obviously giving, you know putting it out there. And what I did was, for my MA dissertation, I obviously looked at Bangalore. I had to sacrifice a lot of days of, the social life of Bangalore. I had to sacrifice a lot of it to sit in my room and, like a mad scientist, be at my desk and keep writing. And you have to be a craftsman at it. You have to be like a shoemaker or a toy maker. You have to look at what you've done and develop it, and it might be in a very raw form, but you have to be at your desk and craft it till it becomes something that's like precious. I mean, that's how you have to look at your life purpose and what you derive from it. So that's what I did. And then, as you can see, I won this award on the dissertation that I had done, and it was very different from what others were doing in English literature. I also had to defend it in that way, and why a city could be seen as a text. But in spending so much time and deriving that much purpose from it, I was able to kind of defend it even in a very logical way and not in a very emotional way as well. Because you're reading, right? You've done your research, you've observed the city, you've put in time to develop that idea. So that's how you go about it. That's how you transform that initial observation into something that, is going to give back to the world, is going to alter something. And that's what I did. So this is what I call acceleration. There are um, rewards in some way to what you have done and put out in the world, right? And once you take effort to actually do something that's substantial, the world is going to reward you. And although I've always thought that, writers and inventors and artists, photographers, they kind of belong to nature, and, the rewards that they actually get are very pure and not materialistic. But also, that being said, for my experience and my own story, there are rewards and people will respond to what you do in the world. And when you put your heart and soul into something that you can defend logically as well, you will get you will get a response from the world that will keep assailing you forward. So that's what acceleration means. And after this whole process, right, we've come a long way. We've gone from observation. We've started with observation, and then we've gone to, realization of the past. And, you know, we've moved on from there to research and an expedition and, developing that thought. And then now we come to ideology and then acceleration, wherein you get things from the world that assail you forward, which is always good. And now the last stage for me was, creative work, because research is research, but to then create your own world and to have someone be a part of that world, through fiction, was what I was looking, as a step forward, as like the final, um, to round it off and to have like a whole end to end process. And that was what became my life pursuit, which was Mizu City, wherein I created this character from, Tokyo, who's traveling from one city to another city every month and is kind of looking at, she's a very estranged girl, obviously, but she's looking at the onslaught of, the impressions that come from a city. She's trying to navigate it. And there's a lot of my own ideology, which I developed over the course of this whole process, into it. So, you take that whole process and then you put it into your creative work. And the people who get it, who have to get it, will get it. And that's how I saw, so that's the whole culmination of the whole process. And now it's my lifestyle. It's I sit every month or so and I pick a city and, I write about it. And it's a very, now somehow it seems like a natural process, but if I look back and I think of, was there a process involved, if you look at it very scientifically, you will be able to chart a process. Like when I was in, I think in 6th or 7th grade, the first project that I did was on a city, was on Cairo, which is the capital of Egypt. And to think back to 7th grade and, to think that it started there is something, uh, it is supernatural, but also it is very scientific on how we moved from one process to the other. So that's what I want to say about, transformation and transformation of an idea and how that can become your life pursuit and the purpose of your life. And what I would like to, give as a takeaway is that, you have to use your observation of the world as a lens to view it. You have to craft it, you have to hone it, and then, pursue it until you make a truly, truly great discovery. Thank you.